All right, welcome back. I'm here with the second video resource in Cultivating Your School Climate. This is intended to be some tips, some guide for helping you as we move into the next school year, whether that's digital learning or in-class learning. And so the topic today is working toward consistent discipline, and this is something that, as I've worked with sites across the district all year, this is something that whether sites have really dialed this in or sites are still working towards doing this, every site I've been to has benefited from having conversations among themselves on this topic. So anyway, kind of like last time, let's get into the why, what, and how of working toward consistent discipline. So first off, and I always do like to start with why. I have a quote here from Dr. Rob Horner, who is the Emeritus Professor of Special Education at the University of Oregon. He worked for decades in applied behavioral expertise, as well as multi-tiered uh, systems, and so he has a ton of experience. And if you've ever watched videos about student behaviors anytime in the last couple decades, there's a good chance you've seen something from him. So anyway, the quote here is that the root word of discipline is to teach or disciple. So build discipline systems that focus on prevention, build appropriate behaviors, and help kids to be competent. With some kids, it's going to take more time than others. So, on that note of time, and why do we want to work toward consistent discipline? I think this is very telling. If we think about one office discipline referral, one ODR, we're talking 15 minutes probably of staff time. That's, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I'd say on average, if you have to fill out an office discipline referral, you're talking somebody somewhere on campus is spending about 15 minutes of their time. And then think about on the student side of that, we're talking probably around 45 minutes of student time. So multiply that by your average day on campus, and we're talking lots and lots of time where either staff aren't able to do the things they need to do because of discipline issues, or students aren't in the classroom receiving instruction. And so this idea that we can use our discipline system to teach the behaviors we want and to build those back into student lives, I think is a really important point and why we want to do this. So discipline systems that are developed, taught, and discussed often and consistently allow staff to also feel supported and for there to be greater levels of communication. So what does that look like? One of the things that is really important, uh, site to site, doesn't matter, elementary or secondary, is that students and staff and everybody kind of has an idea of what your behaviors are. And so more specifically with staff, it's important for staff to define what are the problem behaviors? What do they look like? And when I say define, I really mean what kinds of behaviors are managed in the classroom by the teacher and what kinds of behaviors are managed in the office by an administrator. And so for some types of behaviors, you can have, for example, like disrespect, you can have, classroom managed examples of disrespect. Things like student rolling their eyes at the teacher after, being asked to do something. Like those aren't like send straight to the principal's office kinds of issues, but at the same time, they might need to be addressed more seriously in the classroom. Whereas you can definitely have disrespect on a larger scale, which could end up in the office. Um, and so having a conversation with your staff about what are some of those lines or what are some of those examples can be really, really helpful. And so I encourage, PBIS teams, school climate teams, administrators, whoever it is that might be running those meetings to have those conversations. Hey, what do we do so we're on the same page? Because I can't tell you how many schools I've been to in the last year where uh, teachers and administrators feel like students are being sent to the office for different reasons, or that they should be in the office for this, and then another teacher says, well, no, I don't send students to the office for that, or the administrator says, hey, why are you in the office, to a student, and the student tells them the reason. They're like, no, 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 go back to class. And so this helps kind of get everybody on the same page. So that being said, beyond that, it's important to have sort of a flow chart or an idea of what happens when there are discipline issues. So if you have an issue, is it classroom managed or is it office managed? If it is classroom managed, what happens? If it's office managed, what happens? And that helps to clarify the process for everybody involved, and reduce a little bit of stress that can come from, again, that staff member that has to miss 15 minutes of time just because of an ODR, or an administrator that has to deal with the same thing. So knowing what the process is helps all your staff, including your new staff, to get involved and to get brought into what those systems are. And then it's really important as well to really know what the referral system is and looks like. Some schools focus heavily on inputting into ARIES, both classroom managed and office managed behaviors. Some schools have uh, triplicate paper referrals that get sent up and data gets collected. Whatever that system is at your site, it's important that everybody knows what it is and how to use it. And that should be a part of sort of your process flow chart as well. By the way, I'm going to be sending, along with this video and email, examples from some sites of all of these things. And if you've worked with me this year, there's a good chance you've seen some of these. If you haven't, feel free to take these as templates and use them for conversations or discussion. But I'll be attaching those to this as well. So then finally, the how. How do we work towards consistent discipline? As I mentioned, it's really important that you go over behavior definitions with all your staff. And I think it's important to include your classified staff in that discussion, especially like if you think at an elementary site, your lunch staff, your noon staff, they're kind of on the front lines of crazy sometimes. And so it's important that they know what the difference is between some of those behaviors and how they're addressed. So I highly recommend that you discuss examples of those behaviors. What is a classroom managed behavior that's going to get a more minor type of referral versus something that you need to send a student to the office for? And then I would advise as well, how do you work towards consistent discipline? Review or revise your discipline flow chart. There's a good chance your site has one. It may need a coat of dust blown off of it, but take a look at it, figure out if it's still useful, um, figure out if there's a better system in place, figure out if your administrator that came in after the document was made does things a little bit differently. Revise it so that it becomes a useful document. That way it can be used to sort of have the conversation like, hey, when we do see a classroom managed issue, here's what happens next. And then finally, it's important that everybody knows how to refer a student for either type of referral, whether it's classroom or office managed. So doing so can really help kind of clear up any confusion that there might be when it comes to referring a student. So anyway, as always, if you have questions or you want to talk about this further, feel free to contact me. My email's right here. I'd be happy to work with you. And as always, I hope you have a good day and let me know if there's anything I can do. Thank you.